Hello everyone and welcome to Upfront in the Alberni Valley. I'm Aaron Vissia, your host, and we're going to start talking to local movers and shakers about what's happening in our community. Our very first guest today is our very own Mayor, Mike Ruttan. Mayor Mike Ruttan, welcome and thank you for joining us today. Good to have you on the very first show we're doing.
Well, thank you for having me.
Thanks. So let's start out on a bit of a personal nature, and it's been 2 years or just over 2 years since you were elected as Mayor of Port Alberni, and obviously you have had some transitions and different ways of viewing things from coming from the school.
That's true, and one of the greatest things that I've had to learn is how much longer things take to happen than we want to take. And that's just the nature of working with a city and working with large groups of people and trying to make things happen.
So let's start at City Hall, and some of the first things that you enacted on was some personnel changes within the city. How's that going? How's that impacted these changes for the city? And how has it impacted the other personnel within the city?
Well, we're through the process now. We have established a new team. We've established a different sense of direction for the city. And it's one that council has been very heavily involved in and staff has been very heavily involved in. So we've come from a situation where, frankly, as a council, we didn't fully understand the budget process to one where now we're really part of truly helping establish and stick to those budget goals. And the budget goals are not just for 1 year, the budget goals, frankly, are for 5 and then 12 years.
Mm-hmm. Good, okay. So you have, and as we mentioned already, you came from an administration role in School District 70 all the way to the top position at City Hall in Port Alberni. How has that transitioned for you? What have been some of your personal challenges to make that happen?
Well, I'm really glad I had the experience that I had before becoming mayor. Because, you know, being responsible for a school with, at the time, 1,200 students and a total staff of, depending upon the year, up to 100, a lot of the challenges are very similar. It's all about creating consensus. It's all about creating a common vision. And it's all about working through some really significant challenges and making sure that whatever you get by the end of the process is one that people feel that they've been part of creating, feel that they can support, feel that they can then go out and explain it to the rest of the community. So if we really want to make a difference, we make sure that we lead from behind more than leading out front. We want to make sure that people feel that they have the capacity to contribute to the direction for our city.
And you've offered them many venues in doing that.
We have. And it's very much a process, first and foremost, of making sure that there's that respectful relationship that is created on council and between council and city staff. That is key. If we want to make changes, then people have to feel that their ideas are respected, that their ideas are welcomed, and that people will be able to contribute in a way that is really meaningful.
Mm-hmm. So coming from a place of leading the youth, they also have concerns in the Alberni Valley about things that they want to see. Shaw happened to hit the streets in Port Alberni here, and we started to ask a few individuals about what they're looking for. So I'd like you to take a look.
Are there any plans to fix the skate park or clean it up, or even an indoor skate park for really bad weather?
Yeah, so questions for a new skate park is a really good thing. We've actually been working with a young fellow named Zach Tatouche. And Zach is someone that I knew as a student at ADSS, and he was actually one of the people that encouraged me to run for mayor. And we have indicated where we would set aside land for a new skateboard park, and we put Zach together with a couple of sources of funds. And the city's standing ready to help in any way that Zach needs help. We're not going to lead the project, but we certainly will help in any way we can. And it would be wonderful for the community to have a brand new skateboard park, not one that is between the high school and an elementary school, but one that's brand new.
So Abigail may at some point get her wish.
She may, and certainly the groups that we have put Zach in touch with, they're quite capable of helping with significant amount of the funding. So Zach has been working with Teresa Kingston from Parks and Rec, and I haven't got the latest in terms of where they're at, but I know that we have directed some significant opportunities Zach's way.
Okay, great. Let's get into some of the business aspects of the Alberni Valley, and you yourself have put yourself out there, your face out there as the investment of the Alberni Valley with billboards saying we're open for business.
Right.
So to achieve growth, we need jobs paying livable wages. Has the marketing plan that you've set out on actually come to fruition? Is it working? Is it starting to work?
It's working, but like I said before, it takes a long time for these things to actually come to fruition. So simultaneously, we're working on half a dozen really significant initiatives. And the point of the half a dozen is that each one is very different from the other. And if we want to make our economy vibrant, strong, one that will withstand whatever comes our way, either from globally or provincially or locally, we have to have a very diverse economy. So we're working on aerospace, we're working on shipbuilding, we're working on technology, IT center, fine arts, working on just a whole series of initiatives that are really critical for us as a community. And each one of those fit within the strategic plan that the Council for the City of Port Alberni has established. It's a great initiative. But of course, whatever we do has to be as much as possible in partnership with our First Nations. Mm-hmm. And we make sure that First Nations are aware of the initiatives, and wherever they're interested, they come in as beneficiaries or partners, whatever seems to work at the time.
Are we out there reaching for the areas that we want to get going and fire up, or are we actually just advertising locally and hoping some individuals see and want to come to the Alberni Valley, or are we actually seeking out what we want to see in Port Alberni?
We're seeking out what we want to see in Port Alberni, and we're seeking out far beyond the valley. We're seeking both locally, provincially, nationally, internationally. And whether the project be something for a few $1 million or the project be something for a few $1 billion, we're working on them all.
Okay. And Alberni Valley is somewhat separated in business districts. There's the north and the south. And there's always been somewhat of a bit of a rival between the north and the south businesses. And past council has always put the emphasis on cleaning up Southport, trying to get it revived and get it going, because it has suffered over the years. South still needs that support, but then the north is being ignored, and the north is the carpet way or the gateway to the west coast where everybody sees it visually. How are you working on this or trying to find the balance to appease both sides?
Well, frankly, we're not particularly concerned about appeasing both sides. Mm-hmm. As a council, we have made a decision that whatever extra money we have for beautification, first and foremost, is going to be focused on Johnson Road. Because Johnson Road is our front door. And if we want people to take notice of us as a community, our front door is the one that has more than 1 million people a year go through it. And so a lot of our longer term initiatives are focused on the Johnson Road corridor, which includes Clutterbury Marina and River Road. So yes, our focus is, and council is really clear on that we need to focus on our front door. That was why we did the whole charrette process in the fall, in October, and the report for that has just been finalized. And it's a really critical initiative, but it is not something that's going to happen overnight. It's something that will unfold over 4 to 6 years. We will make the changes as we have the money to make those changes. And in order to create the money to make those changes, we've had to be really, really disciplined in terms of our budget. And a lot of that we can't fund right now. But again, over the next 4 to 6 years, we will be able to make a lot of that happen.
So how do you see, because obviously it is all about money and budget, how do you see us increasing the means to not have to increase taxes going forward?
Well, we will be, hate to disappoint you, but we will be increasing taxes. But we're not going to be increasing taxes dramatically. We need to be, as a city, in a position where we aren't reliant on industrial taxes. And it's not that we don't believe that there's a long-term future for heavy industry. We believe that there is. But literally at any time, because of all sorts of pressures that the city can't control, one or both of our major industrial partners could turn off the lights. And while we think we're in a position to help them help themselves right now, we can't necessarily predict that in the next 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. So what we've done as a city, in sort of very basic terms, is say to our managers that we want to restrict our city's expenditure to 1% increase each year for the next 5 years. And we want to project our city's increase in revenue to 3% per year. So that 2% difference between the 3% and the 1% is what gives us, over time, a little bit of extra money to work with. And the long-term goal over 12 years is that we will have achieved a 24% increase, which then means that we will no longer depend on that percentage of the city's budget that is paid for by the heavy industry. And by that point, since we will no longer be dependent on it, we will be able to use the money from heavy industry as essentially a heritage fund. Put it into some of this major infrastructure that we need to have happen.
So you're going to look at increasing revenue by 3%. How's that going to come to play?
Well, it has to be a combination of increasing fees, increasing property tax revenues, increasing the number of people who live here. And to that point, the number of people who live here, right now at this point in time, if you come to Port Alberni and look for a house to buy, it's a really difficult thing. One of our local realtors was telling me that in January 2015, standard January, he sold 2 houses. In January 2016, much better January, he sold 22 houses. And in February, the first 3 days of February of 2017, he had already sold 22 houses. In fact, that very day, he had a couple come in from Arrington, and they bought 8 houses that one day.
Obviously, that stems from the whole boom in the real estate market right now and the high prices in Vancouver, and people are looking at the Alberni Valley and going, wow, affordable.
Yeah.
That's where we should buy. There's our opportunity.
Well, it's affordable for housing, but it's also, and I think more importantly, affordable for raising families. And, you know, I have 4 children. None of them live in Port Alberni, and 3 of the 4 have families. And they love coming to Port Alberni because they not only can they come and visit Grandma and Grandpa, but they can also get a lot more for the money that they spend compared to what it would cost them in the Lower Mainland.
I think this topic alone we could probably talk on a lot longer, but I want to get into a few other things with you. Our waterfront, it's always been a topic for debate over the last few decades. It appears that the City of Port Alberni has a close relationship with the Port Authority. So how did that come to be, and what can we look forward to seeing with that relationship going forward?
Well, we recognize as a city that our relationship, our progress is intertwined with the Port Authority. The fact that we have a port, the fact that ours is one of 4 federal ports, and it's located in an incredibly strategic spot on the west coast of Canada. And as a port, it has the greatest average depth of any Canadian port, and it has a huge area that is, for the most part, untouched. So we have all this potential. As a city, we can help with the politics, we can help with the connections. As a port, they can help with the infrastructure. And so the 2 of us working together can create some opportunities that we can't do independently. So yes, we do have a strong relationship with the port, and one of the things that many people are aware of is that the city partnered with the Port Authority in order to create Tyee Landing. But there are a number of other initiatives that we have on the go, including shipbuilding, including attracting more business to our port, including the Harbour Industrial Road. You know, there's a lot of things that we do together to impact economic development, impact tourism, impact interest in our community, both nationally and internationally.
Okay. I'd like to take another question from a streeter, if you don't mind.
All right.
What I want to know is there any talks or negotiations for a new swimming pool, or perhaps even better yet, some sort of multi-use rec center? That would be nice.
We have two options with that, and I guess maybe even three options. One, city pays for the entire thing. We go out and we borrow the $20+ million as a city, and just as always been done, the city pays for it all, including its operating expenses. Clearly, as a city, we don't have the money to do that. We don't have the financial capacity to do that, and it's not fair to expect the city to do that. So the next option is to do it in partnership with the regional district, particularly that part of the regional district that uses it, which is primarily the Alberni Valley. That would be our preferred route to go, and frankly, that the aquatic center is our present one. Echo Center is coming to the end of its life. It's 50 years old this year, and it's beginning to fall apart in ways that ultimately will mean that it's no longer viable. So we have a decision about how do we pay for that, what does it look like, where does it go? And the third option is to do it as a private-public partnership, referred to as Triple P. And it's just happened in the last little while that maybe is a possibility, and in a location that wouldn't necessarily be right by Echo. But it is an option for us, and it's an option that the City of Langford took on about 4 years ago. And they have created a really good aquatic center, and it was done in partnership with a private developer, so using private money to create the facility, and then over a period of 18 to 20 years, that developer gets their money back, and the asset is turned over to the City of Langford.
Does that make it more expensive to use the facility if it's privately owned?
It may make it marginally more expensive, but it doesn't really alter much the way it is right now.
Okay.
As it is now, the citizens of the City of Port Alberni pay all the expenses related to our aquatic center. There is a minor amount of money that comes from the regional district, but it nowhere is near what it actually costs to operate that.
Yeah, okay. So certainly thanks, Mike, for that question. A good one at that. Let's just ask you a little bit about some of the development opportunities that are happening in Port Alberni now. There's a few different things. There's the Clutha Haven Marina, and then there's also the property on Gertrude Street across from Roger Creek Park. Do you want to give us a quick update on that, and what's the city trying to achieve with those projects?
Okay, so the Clutha Marina development is one that will be done in partnership with the Hupatchisitt First Nation, and they've been awarded the $500,000 incentive, providing that they meet some particular benchmarks, and we hope to have shovels in the ground this summer, so prior to the Salmon Festival weekend. We're really looking forward to the final drawings on that so that we can share those with the citizens of Port Alberni. I'm sure people really want to know what it's going to look like in the end. I know Council wants to know what the plans will look like. So we're waiting for that to come forth, and there will be some development that will spin off from that. That is clearly our most highly visible piece of property, and therefore our most valuable one. We were also, you talked a little bit about the Gertrude Street property. We have an RFP for the old Tidebrook property, and so that RFP hasn't actually closed yet. We're anxious to see what, if anything, will be proposals. So that hasn't closed, and we don't know what that's going to turn into.
What are you hoping for?
We'd like to see a mix of commercial and residential, but nothing has come before City Council yet at this point, so we're still waiting on that. And then we have an RFP out, or is about to come out, for the property in part of the property in Westport Place. Okay. And If we're going to be attracting more citizens to Port Alberni, then we have to have more places for citizens to live.
And more jobs.
And therefore more jobs.
Absolutely. So every community that wants to see change or growth has to have a vision, and it has to be united. So that starts at City Hall. Is the vision with all the council members and the mayor united?
Absolutely. Yeah, we've got a 5-point strategic plan, and we stick to that strategic plan, and it's been a really good process. Council is good about remaining true to what our focus was. I've been really impressed with the extent to which the 7 of us on council are working together to make these things happen.
Good, excellent. So somewhat of a personal nature in this question here, but and maybe some of my own feelings and not from Shaw, but I just thought I'd end with some thoughts and then get your comments on that. But there's a lot of recent discussion about changing some of the names of the streets in the Alberni Valley. And after some of the debate, looking back at it, you see that to the outside world, any of those changes would be very nominal. However, as far as branding goes and marketing ourselves to that outside world and getting more people in here and more jobs created, perhaps we need more of a dramatic name change, such as the name of the city. And I just want to list off some things that I've Googled really quickly. We have the Alberni Valley News, Alberni Valley Museum, Alberni Valley Bulldogs hosted in the Alberni Valley Multiplex, the Alberni Inlet, the Alberni Valley Heritage Society, Alberni Valley Chamber of Commerce, Alberni Valley Tourism. We have a street in Vancouver named Alberni, Alberni Valley Lions Club, Alberni Valley Track Club. Do you want me to keep going? The list is long. I think you're getting where I'm going.
I get there.
So I guess my question would be, and again, I could keep naming off more names, but Beaver Creek, Sprout Lake, Cherry Creek, they're not really in the Alberni Valley. Or pardon me, they're not really in Port Alberni.
Right.
They're in the Alberni Valley. The regional district, I found on their website, they've just recently adopted a new philosophy that says, we are all one. I thought that was hugely dynamic in what they're stating there. So why wouldn't Port Alberni look at maybe just calling ourselves the Alberni Valley and making us all one?
Or why wouldn't we just call ourselves Alberni?
Open for discussion.
So I remember as a kid, we would be asked, where are you from? We wouldn't say from the Alberni Valley. We would either say we're from Port or we're from Alberni.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually it just became Alberni. But that wasn't the case in amalgamation. And frankly, I was a teenager back then, and I don't know the ins and outs of the conversations between the two city councils.
Mm-hmm.
But I do know that in the end, the city that was the largest was the one whose name was adopted for the amalgamated city. In the end, was it the right name? I'm not sure if it was the right name. Maybe Alberni would have been better than Port Alberni. But whatever decision was made was based on the dynamics at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And given our experience changing the names of just proposing to change the names of just a few streets, the dynamics involved in changing the name of the whole city would be far more dramatic. So I think it's not a topic for discussion right now, but it may be a big part of discussion in terms of rebranding this whole area.
Mm-hmm. But if we are going to rebranding, why would we not want to step back? And yes, it's going to be dramatic, but isn't that what we want? We want to put our name, or maybe our new name, on the map as whatever it will be. But I think branding should start sooner than later. Like, why would we wait?
Because most people would come and say, well, what is it going to cost to change that name? And that would be one of the very first questions that we'd have to be prepared to answer. What is it going to cost? But there are ways that we can look at changing street names without officially changing the street names. We can give street names two names, one official and the other unofficial. So that's something that can be under consideration for the whole reconciliation process, which is another thing that the city has initiated.
Yep. Again, my personal feelings on that one, but I agree, the cost can be there. But I personally think the benefits could far outweigh the costs. Something I hope you consider in the future.
Okay.
And thank you very much for being our guest, Mayor Mike Ruttan. I appreciate you coming in today.
Well, thank you.
And thank you for watching. This has been Upfront from the Alberni Valley. My name is Aaron Vissia, and hey, if you have something to say out there, get involved.